So, all right. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of 2024's Magick.TV. And I'm your host, Rob Rubin, and my better half and my co-host, Wade Long, will be joining us shortly. But today, to start off 2024, we are honored to finally have an author who has intrigued me since I first came across his work, the Book of Smokeless Fire. For those of you who are into the black magic current, this book is a book that caught my attention early in my occult life because it incorporated the Necronomicon, the seven Jinns, and recently recently released the Black Book of AZATHOTH. So without further ado, in this recorded segment of Magick.TV, I am here to welcome our very own guest, Mr. S BEN QAYIN, author of these two wonderful books. Hello, Sir S BEN. Good afternoon and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, it's an honor as well. And thank you also for sending us the pre-release copy of this wonderful book. I mean, I really admire those who really put their heart and soul into writing books about the left-hand path, about black magic, because there's so few credible sources on the topic. But before we start, I just want to get to know a bit about you. How did it all begin for the great S BEN QAYIN? I mean, what was the beginning story of yours?
I don't know that it's all that grand or unique. Honestly, it's start off as a teenager essentially. I was baptized a Catholic when I was 3 years old. Excuse me, and my parents divorced. And basically, I was raised as a Christian, but it wasn't really hardcore. It wasn't, like Ten Commandments on the wall, obey, and all that. It's pretty loose. But I did go to like Christian camps and stuff like that as a kid, but I didn't really take it really seriously. It's like mostly for me, it was like hanging out with my friends. So it really wasn't, I wasn't real religious. So under that kind of umbrella with religion in my home, as a teenager, I was able to start to venture out, start to try to find my own path rather than what was given to me from my parents or tradition or whatnot. And kind of just hit the bookstore. This was back in the day. There wasn't the internet, so really all you had was the bookstore in the mall, and I didn't know what I was looking for. So I ended up buying like 5 or 6 different books on different traditions. Um, there were aspects of each of those that I resonated with, but nothing in totalitarian, nothing in total. There was nothing that really, oh, this is my path. This I agree with this 100%. This is exactly what I need. It was like there were parts of things that I agreed with and other things not so much, and I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't even know what chaos magic was. But essentially, I said, "Fuck it. I'm gonna build my own altar. I'm gonna put my own sigils from these different traditions and incorporate everything that I resonated with onto my own altar." And I started practicing my own religion, basically my own practice, which was working with the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, I essentially was working chaos magic with different elements from everything, So it's like nothing really fit. So I made my own way at a young age with that. And from that point on, I grew up with that essentially well into my 20s. Nearly 30s, and it's always still been a present part of my life. There's always elements within my books from that practice and whatnot dealing with the moon, and in fact, I'm working on a new book dealing with that. Um, so it was just something that naturally kind of progressed.
Okay, well, the one thing I notice is there's a very strong current of the Necronomicon in your work. I mean, because literally you can see it right behind you. And like the first words that happened in the first chapter of the Book of Smokeless Fire was the Necronomicon. Now, there could have been several different approaches people could have taken in the early 90s or late 80s into getting to magic. You could have gone into like Satanism or Wicca and witchcraft. Why did it start with the Necronomicon?
Um, when I started really getting into magic as an adult, because I had left for a little while. Like I said, I went into my late 20s, but then life happens, and I stepped away from things and got busy in relationships and life, and then as I came back into it later as an adult, really looking at everything, um, it was I mean, like really looking at things, really wanting to understand the principles, and look at how it was constructed. Um, The Necronomicon, I mean, when you talk about the Necronomicon, there's so many different versions, you know, and so it's like there were two. There were two. And there's really, in my opinion, there's two. There's what you call the Simon Necronomicon, is like what you see behind me.
Yeah.
And then you have Lovecraftian Necronomicon. People want to intertwine these, and they really have no connection whatsoever. They're completely different books. They're completely different traditions. There's some things that cross over here and there, but overall, they're not related, you know, which I think is funny because a lot of people add like Cthulhu, and then you have like, you know, the sigils of the Simon Necronomicon all combined with it. And it's like, to me, when I see that, I can tell that the person who's doing that really has no idea what they're doing, you know, because they're not related. But the Lovecraftian stuff really took hold, you know, as I was reading his works, and there's something about it, as a lot of people know. I call it the call, you know, the call of Cthulhu, if you will. There's this drawing towards this current, you know, and there's something very alluring to his works and his way he looks at things, you know, and it's like you just couldn't really kind of get enough of it. And so you delve deeper and deeper. And that's interesting because a lot of authors previous before me, you know, have talked about obsession occurring with this particular current. And that's just kind of what it is. It's like you want more and you want more and you want more. And you know, so you go down this rabbit hole. So it's important to keep yourself grounded. The Simon Necronomicon, on that hand, it was like kind of a long story with that one, but I started working with the spirits of the Necronomicon, and I was getting results with it, essentially. You know, when I first went back into magic as an adult, that was the book that I decided, you know what, we're going to try this. Let's go ahead and do this. I didn't do the 12 gates and the walkings of the 12 gates. I didn't do all of the whole tradition in there. I just said, you know what, I'm going to lay out my triangle and my circle, and I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to see what happens. You know, at one time in being in the occult or being a magician, you'll often find yourself, oh, I need to read this book. And then you read that book and you're like, oh, I got to read this book next. And then I got to read this book to understand this. And I got to read this book. And you start to wonder, well, when am I going to actually do this? You know, so that's where I just said, screw it. You know, I'm done reading all the books I need to read for now. I understand enough. I'm you know, going into this, and I started just drawing out my triangle and circle, working with the spirits in there, and I was getting results, and I still get results to this day. Are the spirits real? When I consider real is, do they exist outside of, if nobody gave them energy, would they exist? And I don't believe so. I believe that they're egregores, but at the end of the day, if you're getting results, you're getting results, you know? So I've always, you know, and it's funny because everybody thinks, oh, the Necronomicon's just evil book. It's bad. And, you know, it's actually not. It's it's like when you look at the 50 names of Marduk, you know, they're all beneficial except for 4. You know, and if you really understand the work, it was a book that was supposedly written to keep the dark forces at bay. You know, to work with priests. You know, so it's kind of the opposite of what it's advertised, which I find funny because it's got this sinister feeling and look to it, but it's actually a book that kind of helps people. So, you know, that's something, you know, I think Joshua Free really did a great job. There's nothing I could expand upon as far as what he's done. He's done an amazing job with the Necronomicon Current and all that, even though I haven't fully, you know, delved into his work. I find it interesting. I found like that it was something that was done. However, when I was looking at the clip off, looking at the titles of set, starting to work with that current, that actually brought me into the Lovecraftian zone or realm of things. And once that kind of caught hold, that allure grabbed me, you know, and so I started really going into that, working with that. Problem with the Lovecraftian Necronomicon is that there are bits and pieces of information throughout time, a little booklet here, an obscure book over there, a little bit over here somewhere, you know, and it's like I had all of these books. I was at one point I was a rare book dealer, so I was fortunate enough to have all these things in place, but and I could connect all the dots with it and everything else. But I didn't have the book. I wanted the book. I wanted all the lore in one book. I wanted the history in one book. I wanted the magic practice in one book. I wanted it to be a true book. That didn't exist, you know. So it was something that I took upon myself to compile. And so it's a conglomeration of a lot of things and a lot of connecting of dots and putting it all into one place so that I had what I wanted, and hopefully when I released it, other people would find it useful as well.
This is one thing I'd like to ask you. Of course, the Simon Necronomicon has notoriety in occult circles. I mean, for those who are into occult practice are more aware of it. But of course, the Lovecraftian Necronomicon is more publicly domained. In other words, more people in the world probably know about that. Now, since we were saying that these Necronomicons are egregorial, in lack of a better word, which one do you think has more juice? The Simon Necronomicon or the potential current within the Lovecraftian one?
I mean, that depends on the aim, on the goal of what the sorcerer is looking to do. So it's like more traditional, ceremonial, if you will, kind of magic would be working with like the Simon Necronomicon, I believe, even though there are elements of that within, you know, the Black Book and what I've done. It just depends on the goal. Like as an example, the Black Book of AZATHOTH was written mostly for me because I wanted it to exist, but also for others who had heard this call, who really were into the Lovecraft current, what they call the current 23, and were looking for an actual manual to help them practice and delve into that current more. So it's not written specifically for mainstream. It's not, you know, like someone can write a book about Lucifer and everybody's going to go out and buy it, regardless of what tradition or what they're into. Whereas this is very niche, you know, it's very specific to a particular group of people that were, again, looking to delve into that more. So if you're looking, yeah, see, they're two different animals, you know what I mean? So it's hard to compare as far as like that kind of particular question, of which they both have the juice, depends on what you're looking for. You know, as far as working with Lovecraftian stuff, it's very personal. It's not in a way where, you know, most ceremonial magic, it's like you go into the circle and triangle, you do the evocation, you make your petition, hopefully that spirit hears you and appreciates what you're doing and saying and supports your cause and goes out and does the work. With the Lovecraftian Necronomicon current, it's more of a coming home, working with that energy and delving into that. It's you just like, you're not going to go ask Cthulhu to bring you, you know, some money or something and have him go. It doesn't work like that. It's just not that way. It's just working with your home tradition that you feel and connecting with these entities essentially for knowledge.
That's amazing, because I'm what I'm hearing you say is that they both have their own utility. Like one is not better than the other. What can you say were some of the benefits in working with the Lovecraftian current, and what were some of the benefits in working with the Simon Necronomicon current based on your study and experience?
Well, with the Lovecraftian Necronomicon or current, if you will, it's like really, like I said, coming home. Finding that path, finding that tradition, finding that magical system that people out there just couldn't find. You know, like I said, it didn't exist it really in one place or was hard to access. So it was really a coming home, answering the call, coming home to your current, finding that, really pulling out the mythos from the works and incorporating them into your life and being fulfilled in that way. And that's really the idea of this, is fulfilling that need, fulfilling that direction that you wanted to go in, you know. And so I think that's what that is, you know, what that is for. Well, I will say that, you know, the Black Book of Azathoth, in my humble opinion, is the most complete Necronomicon or Lovecraftian Necronomicon that exists. The reason for that is I wanted to cut out all extra writings, not from any other authors that joined in writing the mythos and adding entities such as Hastur. Things like that were added. What I wanted and I really made a case for was looking at Lovecraft, the entities that came to him through his dream sequences. And those are only 8. You know, there's only 8 of those, and that's what the book is based on, is those 8, 100% true to Lovecraft without any other writings involved from any other authors or fantasy or fictition, fiction or anything else. It's completely raw, and goes into that. So forgive me, but can you recap on your question there?
No, because I was asking like the utility of the Lovecraftian approach to the Necronomicon, and from your experience, and the utility of the Simon approach, because based on the things that you've written and your expertise in this topic, it seems like you can kind of give our viewers a taste of both, because we just learned, or the viewers just learned, that there's a difference between the Lovecraftian current and the Simon current, which is more ceremonial based. So the next question would be, what would you say would be the benefits of working with the Simon current from your own experience?
Well, again, it's like more of a, like, if you're looking for prosperity, you're looking to have better health, you're looking to have doors open for you of opportunity, things like this. That would be where I would work more with the Simon Necronomicon. So it's more a traditional, like I was saying earlier, do the circle, triangle, ask something, do the offerings, ask, and hopefully the spirit will provide. It's almost like a math equation. So it's like 2 + 2 = 4. We get this. This is what happens. So I know, right? And so that's what, if you're looking for those particular things, like most ceremonial magic or most grimoires are about, that's where I would go for that.
All right, so it's gonna. By the way, we're greeted by joined by my co-host Wade Long. I'm just gonna add him as a pin right now. Hello, Wade. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Good
And I'm
morning.
gonna add
Had some
myself.
technical difficulties on this end, but I made it here nonetheless.
Yeah, even here we were having some, but still, I've been wanting to get S Ben on our show for a while. Now it's gonna bring me to the next thing: the Book of Smokeless Fire. Now, I am very impressed by this because you have actually included the practice of working with jinns in here. And what was the inspiration about the creation of this wonderful book? How did this come to you? And what was your hopes for it in creating this priceless addition to occult lore?
I had actually, I had written my first book, Volubilis Ex Chaosium, which essentially is a rough draft of the Black Book, and that was way back in 2012. So the Black Book is actually an expanded, edited, reformatted edition of Volubilis. But in that, I was really looking at Nyarlathotep, and I was going to be writing another book about Nyarlathotep and really going into that. Looking at the desert, looking at the Middle East, looking at these old traditions, and came across a book called the Book of Deadly Names. And in that book, I found that there was a whole list of the 72 jinn. The backstory of it was absolutely incredible. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. How much more, again, how much more Lovecraftian do you want to get when you hear about a manuscript that was found in a hidden room buried beneath the floor of a book of demons and jinn, and just these horrible, these forces of chaos. I mean, that right there could be right out of a Lovecraft story, and yet here it is. It really existed, and this caught my attention. I'm like, oh, what is this? Like, I really started delving into that. Really interesting on that. And the thing is about it is it didn't have any kind of magical system. There was no magical system whatsoever. It was a description of the jinn. It talked about what they could do, but there was no way to work with them. And even though there was no sigils for them, there's nothing, So it was like I had the raw material, and it was a huge undertaking to write that book. A lot went into that. Creating all the sigils, all the triangles, all I even created an alphabet that had gone into that, and so it was like a huge undertaking went into that. Really caught my attention, and I wanted to be able to bring it forth for basically those who wanted to work with those forces in that way. Make it accessible, essentially. Here you have this Solomonic manuscript, and it's untouched. There's nothing there, but if the basis building blocks for something, and then I took those and I actually created a system out of it.
What was the read for our viewers' sake? Because again, wonderful, wonderful book. Actually, I'll let you know how this book caught my attention. There was somebody here in the Philippines selling it, and I missed out on it. And I was like, F me, man. I was like, I need that book. And I couldn't find it anywhere. And I was finally able to get one years later. And I just fell in love with the material. So for the viewers, what was this book of deadly names? What was the history about it for those who don't know? Because some people might say, well, is it the Key of Solomon? Or they say, is it another version of the Necronomicon? Just let's educate the viewers as to what this book of deadly names was all about.
Basically, it's still there. It's a manuscript again when they were remodeling basically I don't want to say a mansion, if you will. They remodeled this mansion. They tore it. They found a hidden wall. They found it under the floor. That there was this manuscript, and it's still hidden. It's still hidden there, but it's still in that place. Mm-hmm. And so that is it. Just the whole thing captivated me completely. It was written by Neves Shadrach, and so he had come across it from an earlier manuscript from somebody or a team that had written in I believe it was Mexico, who had back early 80s had worked on it a little bit. Very little information. I needed to verify that this was actually real. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't know. I was like, before I go and delve into this and really work with it and start bringing this out and forming it, I need to make sure that this is a real book and not just somebody writing something, you know. So I contacted the University of Toledo in Spain, and I was actually able to get a hold of those who work in the records department. They were able to verify and give me much of the information that I needed mm-hmm. to verify that was an actual real manuscript. And so once that was there, I was delighted. You know, I was like, excellent, this is wonderful. I can go and delve into this now. It just goes back a long way. And it's very much like the Testament of Solomon in a way. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of likenesses to that, though it's different. And you have the 72 names of the Jinn. They do not correlate with the Goetia. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I look at it as a completely different book, although there's obvious ties, which I go into in the book. But it's not something to equate with the Goetia. It's not like, oh, we have a Middle Eastern version of the Goetia. You know, you must look at it as its own situation, essentially.
Have you seen any conflations, like common denominators of gods, or entities that are present within the Goetia and even the 72 names? Anything that's had like similarities? Hey, those two are there. This must be something common here, like Belial or something like that. Or has it been completely like two completely different plates?
To me, it's completely different. It's a completely different system, completely different current. Again, yeah, it does have history. It does have obviously with the 72, with Solomon and binding him. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, but again, with the Testament of Solomon, it's very similar. There's a lot of similarities. But to me, it's the oldest version of this, and I won't say more true, but it's different. You know, as an example. Within the Goetia, you have spirits that will gladly help you. Mm-hmm. You have spirits that will, or even say, you know, that eventually, which is funny, a lot of people don't talk about this, but it's like they want to do their time and they want to go back home, wherever that is. You know, they're like, all right, I've been punished, I'm ready to go back at some point. Whereas when you're looking at the Book of Smokeless Fire in the 72, with the what I call the clan or the House of Talal, you're looking at extremely sinister. There's no good here. They're not going to help. And people ask me, you know, can I work with them to help get me money or prosperity, or can I work with them to help me get love? Or absolutely not. No. I mean, you know, it's like people want to take things and just alter it. Well, maybe I could have them do. No. Look, this is a black book. I had a lot of moral issue releasing that book because I realized I was dredging up something that was, you know, 1,500 years old that hasn't been put in circulation, that I'm, you know, putting out there for the modern man to access these currents, you know. But they're all very, very black. They're very black. They're very negative. They harm, you know. And so again, I had some moral issue with that, but I also felt that it was needed for the magician to work with if they need to, and to be able to bring this history back into the modern era in a usable manner.
So since you mentioned that they're all black spirits in this book, as the
Yeah.
creator of this book, some of the questions I'd like to ask you was, since you said there was no actual system when you originally discovered the manuscript, did you have any trouble in the reverse engineering of the creation of a system to work with these, judging by the fact that they're black spirits? Like, were they trying to attack you, or were they immediately cooperative? I mean, what was your experience with that?
Let me just put it to you like this. There won't be a Book of Smokeless Fire 3. You know, there is a second book that I released a few years ago, going into deeper workings with them. Both times that I compiled these manuscripts and worked with them, I've had absolutely disastrous things occur to me in my life. So as a warning, as I've warned many people before, know what you're getting into. Understand that there might be backlash with this particular system. The jinn are not your friend, not these particular jinn anyway. As it is known, jinn, have free will. They could be, whatever religion they want. They can have no religion. These particular jinn are very dark.
So with that being said,
so
I beg to ask then. So, like, as the creator as well, what would some of the utility be in the spirits with these? Like, is this, would you consider this like a WMD? It's like a weapon of mass destruction. It's like,
absolutely. Yep, that's the sheathed sword on your shelf. It's like if you need to do something and it's something somebody had done something horribly, really, I mean, I think it should be really not somebody cut you off in traffic. In other words, like somebody did something really, really bad to you. It's like having a nuclear weapon on your shelf. If you need to use it, it's there. That being said, there's a lot of information in the book that you can utilize. Talking about between the angles or different things, vibrations. There's a lot of information that can be utilized in one's personal practice without having to actually work that system. So yeah, I mean, it's basically there as a weapon of mass destruction if needed.
It's like the gun in the drawer. I get it. All right, I'm going to let Wade ask some questions because he seems like he's got something he wants to ask you. I mean, we started our talk as friends about the Necronomicon, and now we're all here together. So, Wade, want to ask our esteemed guest anything? I'm really having a great time.
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. I was curious in the beginning of the Black Book of Azathoth. There's a received statement from Nyarlathotep himself. I was curious: is the entire book received, or was it crafted from parts received?
I like to say both in that manner, because that was received. That came to me. It flowed right through my mind, and I wrote it as it was coming down. Much as and ironically, as much as Lovecraft had his first encounter with Nyarlathotep by the sequence Nyarlathotep that he writes. The history of that is he wrote the whole thing out when he woke up, this horrible nightmare encounter, and he didn't even realize what he was writing. He said until like a day later, like he didn't even realize what was coming through. He channeled this work through. I felt like that was something that happened with me. So in that, yeah, that particular statement was a direct contact that I had that came through, but with the book itself, I incorporated my own ideas, my own systems, but I also felt that I was guided as well. So I would say a little bit of both. But that particular statement was a direct transmission, if you will.
Okay, I was just curious because the Simon Necronomicon was almost entirely constructed from what I know of it. But because this seemed to the Black Book seems to flow a lot more organically, and that's why I was curious about it. Is that it's not obviously built off of a different system. But have you ever? Are you familiar with Libra Astarte?
No.
Okay, it was one of Crowley's writings about how to become a priest, or like an acolyte and a priest and eventually a high priest of any particular god. And I was just wondering if you had ever done anything similar with the names in this book.
As far as, I'm sorry,
anything is like a program of devotion or trying to come closer to receive more information from them.
Sure. I mean, in that regard, yes. Within the book itself, there's the initiation with Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep is key to working with this, the Black Book of Azathoth and the old ones. As I said before, he's like an ambassador. So it's like Nyarlathotep is known as the soul of the old ones. So he contains all of their essences within him. Um, it's like a translating device, if you will. He's like a translating device. So it's like there's a lot of information from the old ones that don't necessarily make sense, and it goes through this filter and it makes sense when it comes through to him. So it's working with him, you're able to access this information. Trying to work with them outside of him may be very confusing. As I say, with like Cthulhu, you might get a lot of different images of things that don't necessarily make sense, and so it's hard to put those things together. When you're working and building a relationship and initiating with Nyarlathotep, bringing that closer to you and working in that current, this information becomes more clear.
Okay, so what would you recommend for all of our viewers to absolutely try this at home? What would be, say, if somebody wanted to, for whatever reason, become a devotee of the old gods? You would recommend that they started with Nyarlathotep, or is there a particular
Absolutely.
ritual in there?
I would go through with the initiation of Nyarlathotep and build a relationship with him, and from that point go forward. So as it's written in the book, a lot of people say to in the Western tradition, Christianity, you have to go through Jesus in order to get to God. With this, it's like going through Nyarlathotep in order to access the old ones. So he's the mouthpiece, essentially. He's the ambassador, the interpreter, and the soul. So making that contact with him and building that relationship opens up the other doors to the others.
If you don't mind me asking, S Ben, there's this book that was written, it's out of print now by Theon Publishing, called The Faceless God by Thomas Vincente. And he talks a lot about Nyarlathotep in that book, but he conflates him and connects him with the Egyptian god of death, my patron, Anubis. Now, with that being said, in your own studies and the creation of this book, have you seen any commonalities between these two deities, or would you say that they're pretty much two completely different things?
It depends on one's interpretation. I can't say that the author of that book was wrong in his experiences. It's to each their own as far as things go. We all have our own realities. No one can say one's wrong about something. I didn't pick that up, although I do pick it up a lot of connection with Aiwass. So there was a strong connection in that regard. And working with Crowley's description of Aiwass and Nyarlathotep, and I go into the book very thoroughly. There's a very strong correlation.
Amazing. Wow.
If I had to make an educated guess, I would say it would probably be more along the lines of Tahuti being the messenger of the gods, as opposed to a psychopomp which takes people across to the other side. It's a similar job, but it's very like Anubis will take the god, your soul, across to meet the gods, to the realm of the dead, whereas Tahuti would be the one who the guy on the papyrus behind you. He the one who brings the messages across and takes them back to the gods. This seems to be more of that right. Sort of activity.
Well, that was an amazing first segment of the show. I mean, I think you've answered everything I've ever wanted to ask about the Necronomicon so far. So for the meantime, thank you very much for that. Because now we're going to go to the next segment of the show, which is basically the current events. Now, of course, a lot of things have happened in occultism since the pandemic happened. There's been a boom and a bust. Things like witch talk, people saying they're going to curse the moon. But at the same time, more genuine practitioners, teachers, mentors like yourself and other people have stepped up and actually made themselves more accessible to the public to at least increase the quality of occultism around the world. So from your point of view, S Ben, how would you say is the state of the practices, especially of the study practice of anything related to your writings, like the Necronomicon, Nyarlathotep, and things like that? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? And ultimately, what's your hope for it?
I think that it's the perfect time for the Black Book of Azathoth in this new aeon. We have, I read the news every morning, and the headlines are absolutely crazy. We've got wars breaking out absolutely everywhere, AI everywhere, just threatening to destroy us. We got UFOs all over the fucking place. We got diseases and plagues all over and Lovecraft wrote, it's like the time would be known by chaos. And in this new time, this new era, it's like this is a way forward for people to access these energies, if you will, and put them into a new time. As far as other authors and other the community or whatnot, I really don't deal with it. I'm a hermit. I know I didn't used to be, but I'm a hermit in the occult world. I don't work with people. I don't necessarily discuss things with people too much. I kind of stick to myself. I find a lot of drama out there, a lot of this person's trying to destroy that person and this group is destroying that group. And I don't even.
I understand. I
So
understand.
I stick
That's smart
to.
these days. There's a lot of politics getting put on top of everything, and everyone's got their own personal agenda.
I left. I left. I don't. I don't deal with it. I focus on my life. I focus on my writings. I focus on my magic, and that's it. I don't. I don't care. I don't have sides on anything. I'm not part of this group or that group, or I stand alone and I stand by myself, and I focus on my work. And so, as far as the community out there, I hope that it does great. I hope that people find their way. But as far as drama and whatnot, I don't even participate at all. So I hope I hope for mankind's sake that would cease to be. That people here in the community are looking for real magic. They're looking to transform their lives in positive ways. I applaud the authors out there and magicians out there who hold that to be true, who really want to put their work out, to put it out there and to forward the progression of magic, if you will, regardless of what path you're on. So that's what I care about. Those who really know the big picture, know what really matters in this, because it's like it doesn't. This person doesn't like that group, and that it takes away from what this is about. This this is what this is about. So I stick to myself and work on my studies, and I'm happy.
You mentioned that there won't be a Book of Smokeless Fire 3, but will there be other books you'll be releasing soon that we can look forward to?
Absolutely. I'm slowly working on a book now that works with moon magic and fallen angels. So it's fallen angels in relation to that. It's a very personal book because, as I stated earlier, it's something what I started off with as a teenager, and it's been a reoccurring theme and influence in my life up until now, and so it's something I'm kind of getting back to my roots in a way and really flushing that out more. Recalling a lot of my personal experiences, my own personal history is related in there. So it's more of a personal path book. That I'm making accessible for other people as well, but again for myself as well. So really expanding my own system, and it's been fun to do. I love writing. It's like a big sandbox to me. I really just go in there and enjoy what I do. But the thing about it is I it's authentic, it's real, you can trace everything I'm saying back. You can look at everything and it makes sense, and there's logic behind it. I'm not just making stuff up to make stuff up. It's not how it works. So it's like there's a real system here based on real facts and truth and history. I'm putting that into these works.
All right, before we go to the Occult X segment, since you pretty much said that this book is a weapon of mass destruction as the author, what are some warnings you could have for people like, hey, you know what, Rob, that's a loaded gun. Be careful with it. What's some warnings you can have for the viewers out there about to survive having this book in your possession?
The original author of the Book of Deadly Names talks about his experiences when working with this manuscript and finding the manuscript. I took it with a grain of salt, as I do most things. Like, all right, maybe he's doing it a little bit for to be. I'm not finding the word I'm looking for, but a little bit little bit outrageous, a little bit fantastical. But as I actually went into the current and working with these, I want to say spirits, these entities, the stuff that I encountered was really just off the charts. I mean, we're talking about like shadow beings, things going wrong a lot. Just, yeah, really, really awful things turned in my life at that point after the release of the book. And so I do correlate it with that. And that perhaps I was like, well, maybe it was just coincidence. But when I wrote the second book, again, when I was working on the book, there was stuff in the attic moving around. Things would disappear completely. I mean, there was one time I had ordered a pizza and put it on the bed. I went out for a cigarette. I came back, pizza's gone. Not like the whole box. I mean, just the pizza inside. There's no one in the house. You know, I'm hearing, you know, it's just stuff that didn't make sense. You know, things disappearing and then reappearing.
Demons ate my pizza.
It sounds stupid. But I'm just saying, like,
awesome.
It's funny because I think it happened to all three of us. I mean, when you were coming out with your Lemegeton and now I was writing Defense of Occultism, I actually released my first book because I was saying, if I don't release this now, these fuckers are going to kill me. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You know, I mean, it sounded like there were people in my attic. And I'd go up there and there's nobody there. I mean, we were talking about stomping around, not just like a squirrel might have gotten in there. You know, I mean, this is significant. And just nothing up there. You know, no one up there. Bad, you know, a lot of bad things in relationships with people, just completely torn down, a lot of bad luck. So yeah, you know, it's like, as I said, you know, understand if you work with this book, you mean to do destruction, but it also might affect you. You know, these forces are simply the jinn are not your friends. They're not these particular jinn. They're not your friends. It's like walking on eggshells with them. I go over that in the book of having to have a sword ready. Two warriors that are making an agreement, they may not be friends. You know, it's yeah. There's a warning with this book and with that current.
There are some books that just possessing it alone kind of brings that energy into your sphere, into your home. And there are others that just like it, unless it's been activated through the rituals or through the workings, is when it actually turns on. Would you say that this book is one of those books that need to be activated first? Is it safe to own? Or is it like, well, if you have it in your house, I'd say keep it somewhere else? I mean, what would your take be?
I mean, I think it's safe to own. I think it's fine to own it. I think it's once you delve into that current, once you take that step into like working with these particular entities, that opens that gateway.
Wonderful, wonderful. Damn, it's just amazing stuff you've been talking about all night. I mean, this is one hell of a way to start the year, huh, Wade?
Well, so so this wouldn't be something that you would use to you know, get the affection of your sweetie or to get that promotion at work or anything like that. Right. So it would be more like working with the CIA, where yes, you will make money and you will meet people, but you're doing a whole lot of other very large things, and all the material benefits are kind of a sideline. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. 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 You know, it definitely have to be careful.
All right.
Know what you're getting into.
For the last segment of our show, I'm really eager to hear what S BEN QAYIN has for us in store for the Occults X segment. Now, this is where you as the guest can share with us anything you'd like, any topic. It could be any kind of performance, ritual, magic, or heck, I mean, Lon Duquette taught us how to wax our tarot cards with cookie paper. So you can even teach us how to make a sandwich for all we care. But we want to learn something from you, Mr. S BEN QAYIN. So what do you got for us tonight?
All right. It's just kind of I mean, it's simple in its complexity, you know, and that's the idea. Like, my systems of magic are simple, but they have a lot of complexity behind why these things are in place, you know, so it's simple in its complexity. This is a technique or a method, I suppose, that would help evocation for anybody, you know, working in any kind of system. It's not, you know, specific to one system. Is laying down the triangle and circle of art and a lot of people, you read, I mean, this is the thing, you read a lot of books, are like, lay this symbol out, this circle out, lay this triangle out, say these words, and you get the result. And it just isn't like that. It's not as simple as that. And people often wonder, well, why didn't I get result? You know, and the idea here that I want to kind of push forward is I work with salt when I do my lines, when I do my talismans, when I do my evocation circles and sigils, spirit sigils. A lot of people might say, "Oh, don't use salt." They don't like. I've never had any issue with it. It's always worked fine. So, you know, it's up to the individual and their reality, I suppose. But the idea of why I use salt is because it holds energy. It's a way to hold the energy of the magician. So when you're laying down your salt lines for your triangle, I'm pushing my intent. I'm visualizing, thinking about the spirit. I'm thinking about what I'm wanting to do. I'm focusing on the act itself and what is going to take place and what the qualities of the spirit are that I'm working with. I'm infusing this into the salt as I'm laying the lines down. I also will envision, for me, it's a blue flame. I like the blue color. So I imagine a blue flame as I'm laying it out, it's igniting. So within my third eye, when I look at this, it is alive and flaming, and it's also filled with my intent when it's done. It's not simply lines upon the ground. You have brought this to life, putting your intent that holds all of your energy within the salt and bringing it alive visually on the astral level for your third eye to see, and as well as the circle. It's different. I'm not thinking about the spirit. I'm thinking about empowering myself, bringing more power forward, putting these sigils down. It's not necessarily for protection, as you know, that's a whole nother subject, but it's in bringing this to life so that when you're sitting there in the circle, it's alive, it's empowered, and you're able to move forward in that. And so many people miss that. You know, there's simple little things that are overlooked that just aren't incorporated. And so there's these little tricks like this that can really help the magician get better results with what they're doing.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Do you have any particular suggested invocations or incantations when imbuing the salt with intention, or is it just purely mental and willpower?
It's completely mental and willpower. Magic is something that is personal. You know, it's like you could, even with my own books, I tell people, you know, look, this is a template. Work with this right now. If you have nothing else, you know, work with this, build upon this. But the idea here is for the magician to make their own system, their own magic. The idea ultimately, when a magician graduates, is that they can create their own systems. They can do their own magic. They don't have to adhere to all the laws and rules of whatever book or grimoire. See, that's what people have to understand, is the person, just like I wrote a book, I wrote this grimoire, this is my system, it works for me, may not work for you. So what you have to do is make this your own, you know. And people are so crazy about laws and rules. Well, it says to do this, and it says, all right, great, it worked for him. How do you feel about it? What does your instinct say? Do you want to add something here? Do you want to add an extra sigil? Do you want to incorporate your own personal touch to this? Do it. Make it yours. No one can tell you that you're doing your magic incorrectly. This is your path. This is your magic. So ultimately, it's like with poetry. It's like you can learn all the different types of poems to write, A, B, you know, whatever, different sequences. But at the end of the day, you really find out there's no rules. There's no rules to poetry at all. So once you understand all the basics of it all, once you understand all the building blocks, you can take all those building blocks and you can create your own system. You can create your own magic. And that's the idea of this. Like, look, I mean, some things, you know, like with Smokeless Fire, be careful with, obviously use your best judgment with things, but it's like the idea here is to create your magic in your own reality. So even, you know, it's like this sigil here, the Trinity of Triangle. It's not just for working with the old ones. That is a technology. Triangles are a technology. The angles in them are a technology. So you could take that sigil and you can work that, or that sigil, but that triangle, and you can incorporate it in whatever practice that you want. Does it work for you? Do you feel like you want to use it? Does it feel powerful to you? Do you want to work with the Sumerian gods with it, or the Egyptian gods with it, or whatever you want to do? You can incorporate this into it. It's a technology. Just like electricity, it doesn't have any kind of social boundaries. You know, it'll power this device and it'll power whatever. It'll power the TV. It'll power. So it's the idea is using this technology and bringing it out in your own practice. Following one's instinct in magic is key. It's crucial, and so many people do not do that. Like, well, I feel it should be this way, but the book tells me I need to do this, and so it's like really coming out of that and finding oneself, finding one's own practice, trusting one's instincts, creating your own system of things or way of doing things. I think that's the ultimate goal. I mean, I have an apprenticeship that I do or offer. The ultimate goal of that is what I'm talking about. I go over all the basic building blocks of how these things work, why they work, and then at the end of the day, when the magician leaves, they're able to understand the principles of magic and now apply them in their own way for their own magic. And that's essentially graduation day. So it's really about you becoming powerful within your intuition, within yourself, and creating your own magic in your own reality.
Wow. All right. So anyhow, that pretty much sums up our episode for tonight. Now, before we conclude, I'd like to let you plug any upcoming courses, services, books, anything you'd like to share with our audience, and where they can find you, because we're always here to support our amazing guests in any way, shape, or form we can. So, Mr. S BEN QAYIN, take it away.
All right. Well, I do offer a wide range of services. I do consultations. We can talk about whatever you want, magic-wise, obviously. So, you're stuck with this, you want techniques with this, you want whatever, we can talk about whatever you want, and I'm willing to help whoever is wanting that help. I also offer tarot readings. They generally last around an hour. I do it through video as well as consultations, so I'm happy to do tarot readings as well. Tarot is a wonderful system, as you well know,
Yeah,
and even working with magic and everything else. It's a lot of things that you can do with tarot that people don't really realize. I also offer, like I mentioned, an apprenticeship. So there's an apprenticeship that lasts 4 weeks. We meet once a week for 2 hours for 4 weeks. And at the end of that, as I've just described earlier, you're able to understand the principles of magic as I understand them from my point of view of things, and then apply them into your own personal reality. As well, I offer many different rituals. So if you're looking for prosperity, path openers, pacts, it's pretty much the gambit of things. It's really not limited. So if there's anything that you're looking for, generally I'd be able to assist in that. And the way to get a hold of me for those things is the best way right now is through Facebook, essentially.
All right. Do you have any where on Facebook can they find you? Like a website or something like that?
Just under my S BEN QAYIN. I generally will have a post about services that I offer here and there, but you can just contact me, through direct message, and I'm happy to get back to you.
Yeah, I personally have had a reading with you and I was very satisfied with the results. I will be consulting with you again in the future. And last time I checked, also, your readings are on sale right now. So people should take advantage of that because they went on sale like 2 weeks after I had mine with you. I'm like, damn it, I should have waited. But then it was worth it.
I don't plan my sales.
But no, the reading was really, really worth it. I mean, as a fellow tarot reader, I don't bullshit. If it was crap, I wouldn't announce it on my show. But I really got a lot of clarity from what the reading you gave me. So before we let you go, Wade, do you have any questions you'd like to ask S BEN QAYIN before we stop the recording?
Oh, that was everything I needed to ask was about the origin of the book, and anything, if there was any concerted effort through via Libra Astarte or anything of that nature. So I'm good.
So once again, awesome. This is Rob and Wade from Magick.tv. We'll be announcing our next guest soon enough with our first guest for 2024, the ever so epic S BEN QAYIN. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't go anywhere because we're still going to have you in the lobby. We're just going to stop the recording right now. So see you all next week for Magick.tv.